In my opinion, it's safe to say that we all have trigger words, and in this video, Uber is hitting my trigger words. Now, this video is not just connecting a few things for me. I guarantee this is going to resonate with like 90% of drivers because we've all gone through a lot that you're going to see in this video. But there's going to be a continuation for it in the next video, so you're going to want to stick around and put on notifications because I can't possibly make this stuff up. So in my last video, because my gig work videos are starting Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I ended up clearing $178.96. Now, to give the breakdown for those that already know, I review my Amazon earnings because I am an Amazon influencer, my YouTube earnings, and if I go out to do gig work. So that was 3 days of self-employment, 2 of them where I went out for gig work, and generally speaking, I go for 2 to 2.5 hours, 4 to 5 days a week. So it was $178. Now we're continuing with what we call the start of the week, because it will be the start of the week, but it's the end of my 7 days. So let's cover Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now for those that are getting into my routine, Sunday, Mondays are days off of gig work, but we do have to go through the YouTube and Amazon earnings. So for Sunday, September the 1st, my YouTube earning was $19.63. And for Amazon, it was $6.88. So we add those two together. I did no gig work on Sunday, $26.51. For Monday, September the 2nd, I also did not do any gig work. YouTube was $15.59. Amazon was $3.06. For a total of the two of them together at $18.65. So we got the total for 2 days of content creation all by itself of $45.16. So that's going to be added in the end with the 178 and what we did with gig work and Amazon and YouTube for the next 2 days. So Tuesday, September the 3rd. Let's start off with YouTube and Amazon and then we'll get to gig work. YouTube, $19.54. Amazon, a measly 96 cents. But again, I have not been posting Amazon videos, so I'll take what comes for free. Essentially, it's for free. I still made the videos initially, but anyways. Now let's go on with the ride along. So I got out on Tuesday roughly around 6 p.m. and I was driving along Tashro when I got this offer from Uber. Now this was for $11.05 for 20 minutes, 5.2 kilometers for Sushi Shama on Tashro. We had the drop off over at La Page Brassard. Now, I am familiar with that location. I accepted this order knowing the pay was good, and generally speaking, I've gone to the sushi shop before a handful of times in the past, and the food is always ready when I walk in, and this time it was no different. It was ready when I got there. The only issue is I knew this drop-off was going to be one of those high rises in Distrant. And for those who are not familiar with this location, I generally hate going to this location because I do drive a big car and because it's very limited on parking. Now, after collecting the sushi order, which was a nice 20-piece sushi with extra soy sauce and a salad, I then headed off. Now, parking was what I thought it would be, which was horrible. I might have found a visitor parking if I looked around a little bit, but I was not. Really? You can't make this stuff up when you're recording. Of course, alarms go off. If you didn't hear that, I paused because an alarm was going off. Anyways, let's go back. So I might have been able to find a visitor's parking, but I find that those areas are straightforward, just too narrow. So because of that, I also had limited access to turn around in this location, and the police are always around ticketing in this area. So I chose a spot across the street instead, and I put on my 4-ways and I walked across. Now, I know that most drivers would not have done it this way, but the amount of tickets I have seen, I'm not dealing with that. But it brought me like in the sense of less anxiety because I don't have to worry about the parking as much. I ended up finishing the order and I came back and the price ended up being quoted with the tip in the end, $11.05. So it was what it was quoted, which I wasn't complaining for. After that was done, I drove back to Tashro because delivering in Distrant, it is an option, but I'm truly not a fan of the high rises and the lack of parking. And while driving on Tashro, I did receive this other offer from Uber. Now this was $8.27 for 12 minutes, 2.2 kilometers for St. Hubert for a drop-off in Grand LA. So of course I accepted for that price and the dollar. It was just around 7 p.m. So for an hour, that would have given me about $19 for the hour. But of course there had to be a hiccup. I got to the restaurant and the client only wanted 2 items. It was a chicken leg combo and a brownie for dessert. But when I got there, they told me that another driver already had that order. So we are all infamous of going to restaurants and finding out that happens, because yeah, it seems to still be happening. So they told me that there was either a glitch in the system or that the driver stole it. I predicted that the driver kind of stole it. So I went into the support option and I canceled the order as someone else picked up the order. But I decided, since I was already waiting for orders anyways, I might as well call support and at least get my $3. Now, I don't encourage anybody to just call for $3. I'm never going to say to do it. But for the sake of content, for the sake of sitting around anyways, and I know myself, I have no problems multitasking. I can be on the apps. I can drive around while being on the phone. I use my earbuds all the time. So this was for the sake of myself. It was also for the sake of me wanting to get one update. I have been getting a lot amongst YouTube comments. Terry, you are definitely one of them. I see your comments, lovely. I definitely replied to them. And basically, a lot of individuals are saying that there's zero compensation being paid out to everybody. Now, I wanted to see this for myself, so I did contact support. Now, I managed to get somebody pretty quickly on the phone, and we talked about things. And he proceeded to tell me that I am not entitled to, here is my trigger word, compensation. Now, in my books, this is not compensation. This is entitlement. I went to the restaurant, I used my gas, I did the efforts. I am entitled to at least the $3. The word compensation, that goes more for my time and my efforts and my struggle. But when it comes to the gas and it was me physically doing the job, that is entitlement. So for those that are saying that Uber is trying not to give up the $3 by support, you are absolutely correct, because here's what ended up happening. I'm proceeding with this phone call, and I decided that instead of having this conversation, because this guy was just making me floored, I wanted to speak to a supervisor. We all know that's basically what I do. So what ended up happening with the supervisor, I'm going to let you know. This won't be resolved until Friday, which is the next video. However, there's still something that happened. So it's kind of like a 2-part scenario. It's actually super interesting, so keep watching. We'll talk about what happened now, and then I'll talk about what happens later in the next video. So I spoke to the supervisor, and she also proceeded to tell me about this whole compensation thing. And we're about 30 minutes into the call, and at this point, she tells me that she'll give me at least the $3. But my struggle with getting now the $3 is you've already wasted 30 minutes of my time. So I said it wasn't good enough, and it was insulting. Now, what ended up happening is she puts me on hold to investigate her options. And she comes back to me, and you can tell she's flustered and does not want to deal with me. She ends up coming back to the phone, and she tells me that the only thing that she can do is send this off for review. Now, before I could get 2 edges in when it comes to speaking, she basically just said, that's what I'm doing. I'm sending it off to review. That's it. That's all. And she closed off the call. So obviously I didn't get anything, which is what a lot of you lovelies do struggle with, is the fact that you speak to support and they do that to you. And I'm understanding that struggle a little bit more. But like I said, stick around for the next video to find out what happens more. But either way, that's what happens. And since it was already almost 8 p.m. by the time I got that all wrapped up, it was a quiet Tuesday, and, support wasted my time. I went home and ended my day with only that $11.05 from Uber. So between Uber, Amazon, and YouTube, I only made $31.52. So definitely things that I can relate to you guys on. Not getting the compensation and having my time wasted, still seeing that food is either being taken or misplaced. Yeah, those things are still very much real. But let's check out my next day. So Wednesday, September the 4th, YouTube $22.87, Amazon $7.15, and now let's talk about gig work. So I had a 5:45 to 8:45 skip the dishes shift, and I got out to do orders around the 6 p.m. mark as usual. And I was chatting on the phone with my brother while I was out, and I got this skip the dishes order. $5.36 for 4.8 kilometers for Wendy's came in. And that was an obvious no. Skip can pay out when they want to, but I don't think this night was a night for me or Skip. However, 10 minutes later, I did get this awesome Uber order. So this was $19 double stack 30 minutes for 7.2 kilometers for my favorite, Deli Kebab, with a drop off in Brassard, followed by Longale, or what I like to call New Greenfield Park. Both orders were Deli Kebab, and I've said this before, Deli Kebab is one of my main places to go because it's full of some of these amazing orders. I didn't think there was additional tip on it because the client one had 5 items and the other one wanted a combo and 2 additional items. Now this order did end a little bit more different than some might expect, so keep watching to find out what happens. Let's just say it's typical of Uber. So I got the Deli Kebab, walked in with one of the guys that I know from there who works there, and it seemed to be that it was like ladies' night at the Deli Kebab because there was me and other ladies that were there. They were in the front and I was in the back of the restaurant, which is where you were supposed to be. And the funny thing is that I got there last, but I was definitely prioritized first. So I got my order and I ended up getting both at the same time, and I got everything done in 33 minutes for that $19. So that's not bad at all. But let's fast forward to how the tips went. So my first client ended up tipping me roughly $14, which was the combo order. But the client with the 5 items, who actually was a meet at the door, well, yeah, he only tipped me $1. Super typical of Uber to mix those good paying customers with the ones that don't pay just to get those orders completed. So I am getting stuck with double stacked orders with essentially almost non-tippers, just like a lot of you lovelies are getting. But still, I won't complain for 19 because it was a good paying order. But for 5 items from Deli Kebab, and he was a meet at the door and he was like talking to me and everything else, yeah, I do kind of find the $1 to be an insult. Who wouldn't? After that, Skip decided that since it's after PM, so it was time for them to wake up and send me some orders. So they ended up sending me $15.52 for 13.6 kilometers for Boston Pizza with a drop-off way over in Chambly St. Hubert, and I said nope. Then a $17.31 for 14.5 kilometers with a pickup of Fulham Express for a drop-off way down in St. Hubert. I'm not really sure why they even show Longale. That was also a no. Then an $8.26 for 8.4 kilometers for Piazza Pazza for a drop-off in Brassard. So all 3 of those were definitely declined. Skip does not tip bait, but they also have no hidden tips. So there was no sense of me doing those because I know that the amount's going to stay the same afterwards anyways, and I kind of really look for those hidden tips if it's going to be long distances, like I want more for my money. But on Uber, for example, I'm more likely to do that because of the factor of hidden tips. Anyways, after declining all those Skip orders, Uber came back at like $7.18 with this $9 for 21 minutes, 5.7 kilometers for 3 amigos with a drop-off in St. Lambert. Now, I had plans to meet up with my best friend around 8 p.m. and she lives not far from the drop-off, so I took it since I was going up there anyways. And it was very simple. They wanted some chimichangas and a 7-Up, so it was a decent little order. And 3 Amigos was not overcrowded, so the pickup was easy. The drop-off was a little bit annoying though, because there was actually a huge gas leak on Taschereau. So anybody who's watching these videos now and wondered why Taschereau was dug up this week, that is the reason why. Huge gas leak. So I actually had to take the cross streets because the police was routing everything. And so I had to drive all throughout those cross streets with everybody else. And I was able to do the drop off. Now it was a meet at the door. And for those that are not familiar with living in Quebec, this is something that happens often. And I want to tie this into my next video. You're going to see why. Because it's going to stand out for something that I've never had happen to me before in the next video. And it might be tied into this. As I dropped off the order, I'm speaking to the gentleman and he automatically detected that I am an Anglophone. So I'm an English-speaking Quebecer. But I speak French. My writing in French is horrible, but I speak it not to the standard of bilingual, but I do speak French. And he says to me, so you're an Anglophone in Quebec? And I said, yes. And he said, why? And I said, well, I'm born and raised this way. And he's like, oh, okay. And I was like, but, I try, I speak French, etc. And that was it, case closed, and I give the man his food. Now in the next video, you're gonna see why I think that might have affected things when it comes to being a delivery driver, but you'll have to catch back on that to find out why. Now, at the end of this, I ended up getting it done, and I did make a total of $28.79 from Uber. So because of this, the fact that I was going to my best friend's place, I was not going to keep on doing Uber. So I signed off Uber. And so for the last 4 days between Uber, Amazon, YouTube, I had pretty low paying week for a total of $135.49. So that's for 4 days. So 2 days without gig work, 2 days with gig work. Obviously we had one day where I only made $11, and on this day we only made $28. But me and my best friend we were deciding that, you know what, we were going to take a little break from reality and actually head over to the Montreal Casino. Now, the Montreal Casino is not something I often go to, and considering I'm doing a get out of debt series, which is not a lie, I am trying to get out of debt, I was a little bit, how can I say this? Like, you want to go and have a little bit of fun, but you're a little bit concerned if you spend a little bit too much money. But me and my bestie ended up going, and it was in my benefit because I put $40 into a machine. I got up to $104 before I ended up getting a major payout on Frankenstein, and I ended up profiting $1,172 off that machine. And a long story short, I ended up walking out with $1,300. So even though gig work decided to be shitty to me, even though I had support team decide to put me into a rut with things, and even though those 4 days were not very profitable, I feel like the good deed of going out, doing more, trying my best is kind of working in my favor. So maybe that's why I got a nice little payout from the casino. It is definitely in the bank account. I have not overspent it. I've literally been using it towards paying my bills, but that was definitely a break that I think I needed on a rough week. Now, from there, that was pretty much it. It ended my week. 7 days, plus the fact that 4 days, plus the fact that we had the 3 days all together. So for my 1 week, my 7-day period, I made $314.45. So it wasn't really that great, you know, but again, I won the money at the casino. I decided to take a little bit of break, take a little literally of a gamble with my bestie, and it did pay off. And no, the casino is not something I go to often, and no, I've already disclosed it in a previous video. It is not how I racked up my debt. I racked up my debt because I was being lazy, living off of self-employment, like content creation, versus going out and doing the gig work, and that's what caused me to rack up my debt. When it comes to the casino, I probably go now once every 6 months to once every 4 months, so it's really not that often. And when I'm going, I'm not going and taking hundreds of dollars or something like that. It was just a treat. It was a treat that paid off, and it was beneficial. And there is going to be some more beneficial things that's happened to me later on in the week in the next video that's not involving the casino. But you're going to have to stay tuned and catch me in that one. And I'll catch you lovelies in the next video.